Hello everyone, welcome to today's Vision 6 Power Session Capture and Segment Data with Forms. My name's Andy, I'm a product trainer here at Constant Contact in Brisbane, and I'll be taking you through today's Power Session. Now, just a bit of an introduction to today's session, which again is called Capture and Segment Data with Forms. And in today's session, we're going to learn how to build forms, add fields to them, or rather I should say add relevant fields to them, because there's a little bit of a method to our madness, which we'll have a look at. And then gather the data for personalization and segmentation. If your content is more personalized, it's going to get a much better engagement rate, click-through rate, open rate, and of course, your email is going to convert so much better. So with very little extra effort, we can make our email perform so much better. And we can use fields on our forms to enable this. Having segmented data also lets you make use of our conditional content feature, which I'm going to show you shortly within the Vision 6 product as well. And it also means your automations will become so much more powerful if you've got data to enable that. Now, what I mean by that is, let's just say you've got a form that users are filling in on your website, and you'd like to send out different information depending on what state of Australia they're in, or whether they're a business or sort of a residential or home user, a customer. So by having these different pieces of information available to you on the contact record, rather than just send the same piece of content to everyone, you can use the conditional content feature and filtering in our advanced automations to send different information out to your different audiences or buckets of contacts, so to speak. So by having this data, it just enables that to be so much more powerful, which again will make things more engaging and increase conversions and that type of thing. So why should you personalize? We've got some great data here around that. So personalized emails will deliver 6 times higher transaction rates. Having a segmented targeted email also generates more revenue, 58%. Marketers also will see an average increase of about 20% in sales when using personalized experiences throughout the customer journey. And also having a call to action that's personalized will convert over 200% better than a default one. And by that, I mean a call to action is generally something in the email that's asking the user to do something. So click here to buy now, click here to fill in our survey, something around that. It's the sort of action in the email, what you'd like the user to do as a result of seeing the call to action, reading the email, and so on. And by having a personalized CTA, as you can see, it results in a much better conversion rate. And it's as simple as an example, putting the person's first name onto your CTA button is one of the ways we can do that. Deals for you, first name, something like that, will be one of the ways we can increase that conversion rate than just having a standard default generic call to action button and that kind of thing. So it's all about capturing the data, storing the data, and then using it to create these segments. So what we're going to do is add some different fields into Vision 6 that we can use for segmenting. Now, this can be when you import contacts into the system. That's when you can fill in these new fields with information. Or you can ask additional questions on your forms and then use these for segmenting later on. So for example, when someone subscribes to your email list or your newsletter, on that form that they fill in, that's where you can ask for some more information. And we'll go actually in a few moments, we'll jump into Vision 6 and actually set some of these up so you can have a look. And then of course, once you've got the data there, you can then use it to segment later on. Also, we've got another option in Vision 6 is rather than at the time of subscription, you can also allow contacts at any time to update their profiles with some more information. And that's through a link in the email footer. So that's another way you can get your contacts to provide you with a little bit more information. So you might send out an email once a year that says, hi, first name, are your contact preferences up to date? They could click a button, it drives them to a Vision 6 form. And then on that form, you ask them, to set their preferences, to set their information, which types of donuts are your most favorite? What types of sweet food do you like? Are you gluten-free, vegetarian, etc.? What state are you in? Would you like to receive our specials weekly or monthly? All these kind of questions you can start to ask on these forms. It builds a bit of a profile of your contact and then use it to your advantage when it comes to segmenting. So let's quickly jump in and customize a form, and we're going to add some extra fields onto the form. and use those for segmenting purposes. So we'll jump into Vision 6 now. I've got it open here. Actually, one thing I just did want to show you first is you might remember a few slides ago, I spoke about conditional content and where we were showing different information to different contacts based on what they told us at some point in the past. I'll just give you a quick example of that here on the screen because sometimes it's easier to sort of see what I'm talking about and then we'll go back and build it. So in this particular email here, you'll see if I just open up the preview window on my screen here, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit there. You'll see that we've got the person's first name coming into the email here and here. And then if I go to my other contacts on my list, you'll see I've got some different contacts I can flick through. You'll see that we have, the first names changing. We've got down here the store map of their local stores is changing as well. So some really good bits and pieces of our email are just being adjusted automatically based on what we know about our contacts. So that's where you can use that information to your advantage as well. I've also got one here as well that adjusts the first article for those users that are gluten, or I should say those contacts that are gluten-free. So again, it's data that's driving this personalization. It's showing different information for different contacts. So if we didn't have the data in the first place, building all this stuff out wouldn't make any sense because everyone would still see the generic version of the email if all you've got is their email address. But if you've got things like first name, dietary, state down here, then you can start to build out some of this more dynamic content within your comms. But let's jump back into building a form. So we'll show you how you can capture some of this data in the first place. So I've just gone into lists and forms here, and I'm going to double click on the list that I wish to work with. So that's my customers list here. And I've got a pretty standard looking Vision 6 form here. So on this form, this is where we can start to add some of these different fields that we'll use for personalization. Now, I probably don't need a last name field. I'm never really going to use that, so I can delete it. But there's a couple of other things we might want to ask here. So I've got all these different fields down the side already on my list, but the one that I'd like to create at the moment is a field to ask for the contact dietary, because that would be quite useful to us. If we've got sort of, some gluten-free specials on at one of our stores in Queensland, we could target the users based on their state and also based on their dietary. So I need to ask it to allow them to set that information in the first place. So I'll go through here and add a new field to my Vision 6 form. I've got lots of fields I can choose from here, so state, country. And the great thing about these is that these are all populated with all the countries and states as well. So that's a good time saver too. But I'm making one for dietary. So which type of field can I use for that? Initially, you might be drawn to a drop-down or radio button, which is where the user can click and choose one of many options. But someone can be gluten-free and vegetarian. They can be both. They have both those options there. So I'm going to use a checkbox, which allows you to select multiple items. So that's the field type I'm going to choose. I'll then give the field a name, so dietary, and then I'll pop in my options. So we'll go gluten-free, vegetarian, might go vegan. So you can put all your different options in there. You can rearrange them, of course, as well by dragging them up and down, but that's sort of a good base level to start with there. So I've just added those into my form. We now have a new field on my list called dietary, and they're the options there. I can, of course, go and rearrange the different form fields, of course, as well. Another one that I might like to add to my form is interests. So here we have this is one field I had already prepared because all the values are already in there, but I could have made a new one. And this is sort of allowing them to select which foods might be of interest to them. And again, we can use this for segmenting down the track. For example, if we have a whole bunch of pretzels we need to move before the weekend in our Queensland stores, I can search my list for people that are interested in pretzels in the state of Queensland. So got those two fields there I can use for segmenting purposes. So again, it's all about having the data you need to achieve what you'd like to from a personalization point of view. But now that I've got that there, I'll quickly make some tweaks to the form. So maybe I'd like to have my label above the field. So I'm going to click on my field, adjust the settings on the right here for the label to be above. It just sort of adjusts the way that looks a little bit there. That's all looking pretty good. And also I might make the first name mandatory And the email mandatory, we'll definitely need that. Otherwise, we can't ever send anyone anything. So those two are good. But I'll leave these as optional because if the person wants to fill them in, great, they can. It will allow us to segment and use the data to our advantage. But we don't want to make everything mandatory because the more roadblocks you put in place, the harder you make it is for someone to subscribe, the less likely they are to do so. So I'll just keep it simple with 2 mandatory fields. The others are optional. But sometimes it can help to put a little bit of a text box there to explain why we need these or why it would be advantageous to fill in these extra fields. So I'm just going to make a new, sorry, I did that a bit quick there, but essentially I went to components, added a new paragraph component, and that's dropped in a new block into our email, which I've been dragging around. And let's put in some text there. So we're going to sort of explain why this information is handy to us. So completing the, let's go, the following fields will allow us to personalize your offers and discounts or something like that. Sometimes if you make it sound like, there's a deal there, and it might get some discounts if you fill that in, then that can sweeten the deal, pardon the pun, as well. So we'll just pop that there so that they go, okay, cool, well, yeah, I might just pop some information in there because I know I'll get better deals. I'll get more personalized deals for my state or my region or whatever it might be. So that's all looking good. A couple of other quick things. Let's say subscribe for the latest news and deals, or news and offers sounds good. So I'll pop that in there as the title at the top of our form. And just to also show you that you can insert pictures into here as well. So I'll use the little image toggle. I'll go to my logos folder and insert my logo onto the form as well, just to keep the branding nice and neat there with our donut shop. I'll set the color of the form there as well. You've got all these different settings you can adjust for colors and whatnot. So I'm just going to set those as well. Just again, keep the branding consistent. Looking good. That's our form now, ready to go. So when we add this form to our website, we can then, or the user will see all of these options on the form. I'll set myself as gluten-free Queensland, and I like donuts, waffles, and cakes. Submit that. There's a thank you page as well, which you can customize. That is this one here. Thank you. You can go and customize that. But that's now done and ready to go. So if I go to my contacts now on the left-hand side, you'll see there is my new email entry or contact record that I just created. My email, my name, my state, and then further along, there's the food I'm interested in. And even more further along should be my new dietary field. There you go, where I said I was had the dietary requirement there of being gluten-free. So all the data is now there on my list, ready to go. Excellent. So that's how you can use a form to ask more questions, to get more data, which will allow you to personalize, which will make your email more engaging, interesting, and increase your click-through rate and conversion rate. So a couple of form design tips there. Less is more, and that was true that we did there, where we didn't put 50 million fields on our form. And if you are using, or if the form is getting a little bit long, like ours was, probably 4 questions is probably the max you'd want to do mandatory for a subscribe form. But using those optional fields or making fields non-mandatory is a good way to get around that. And then sometimes it's best, as we did in our form, to explain why you might need to collect extra information as we did there. We were putting that little bit of information that says completing the following will allow us to personalize your offers and discounts. So explaining why we are asking for more information. Also select the right type of form. It's not something I covered within the session there, but we've got these different sort of forms along the top of the screen here. The web form, it's also called a subscribe form. I'll just rename it. You can rename it by double clicking on it. It's just an internal thing that only you will see that. But the subscribe form is what users would, or contacts would fill in to subscribe to your list. So that's probably the main one you would use. But remember, at any time, you can ask your contacts to update any of this information here using an update profile form. And you can link to it from an email. You can put it in the footer of your email so that at any time they can click and set their preferences, update their profile, or even unsubscribe as well. So at any time you can link to any of these forms here, and update profile is the one that you would use to ask existing contacts to change their information. Subscribe form is for new contacts joining your list. So just select the right type of form. If you're not 100% sure, or if you're sort of referring back to this at a later point in time and you're not sure, within Vision 6 at any time, you can press question mark, go to the Help Center, and if you just type in forms, there's a really great guide that sort of explains the differences between those 4 form types, what they do, how they work, and so on. There's also that thank you page that will appear that I showed you there briefly as well. That comes up when someone does fill in a subscribe form, so you can customize the thank you page as well. Similarly, on the update profile form, it has a thank you page as well. So if you are allowing existing contacts to change the information that they've got on file, there's the thank you page on that form type as well. And one other thing, again, not covered heavily in this session, but we have another power session on this, and I'll link you through to that rather at the end when I send through the recording email later today. But there is also a way that you can skip a login for update profile forms. Again, that'll be covered in the other power session, just something to keep in mind there. Oh, wonderful. So now that we have this extra information, in other words, we've got data we can use for segmenting, how do you use it? So let's just say I want to send an email to people that have gluten-free set on their dietary field and are in the state of Queensland. How do I use this information now? So if we come into our contact list, again, I'll just open this up here. I'm just in the contacts area, looking at my customers list, and there's my state field and dietary field. Let's say I want to send an email to those that are in the state of Queensland and whose dietary is set to gluten-free. How do we use these segments? Firstly, a couple of different areas you can do this or use this in. Here, when you're just browsing your contacts, I've only got 9, but if you've got 9 million, a search function would be great at this point. And we have one over here. You can click into this, go new search, and then build up your criteria here. So this is where you can build your segments. And a segment is just a search. Basically, you're searching for contacts that meet certain criteria, and that is then a segment of your contacts. So we'll go dietary is gluten-free. We'll add another criteria, and this will be state. You could do contains, does not contain, starts with, ends with, sorts of options here, but we just want to do an exact search for Queensland. And you can then save it. So I'll just call Powersession QLD gluten-free contacts. Now that I've saved it, that appears in this little search drop-down. There it is there. So once I've saved it, appears here. And all of your users who log into Vision 6 can access this. So if you've got some colleagues that want to look at this data, they can bring up the same saved searches. And now that I've run it, it's found the only 2 contacts that are in the state of Queensland whose dietary is gluten-free. So great little way to create and save your segments there. But also, let's say we want to send an email to that group of people. We might have a big sale coming in later in the year. This one's obviously expired, but let's say we want to send this out to people. So we'll go to the send screen. We can then go and choose our list of recipients here. And rather than send it to the entire list of 9 contacts, we want to send it to an advanced selection. We want to use our advanced search tool here. And you could sit here and build your search again, although I've only got 2 fields, so it really wouldn't take long to rebuild it. But I did save it, you might remember. So I can press this, and there is my saved search from earlier. It will bring up all the data that we've created in our saved segment or our search. And now it's finding the same 2 contacts as before. And now if I send this, it will just go out to those 2 people. So that's how you can now use the data that you've gathered over time on those forms using the new fields and data you've got. This is how you can use it to your advantage to now send out to a segmented or smaller group of people. So a couple of recap and tips and tricks there. Having more data available to you means you can personalize and segment. So using the forms is one way to get the extra data. Then once you've got the ability to personalize, you can then build a personalized email, and that's going to resonate and perform so much better than just a generic email that's going out to everyone. A segmented send means you're reaching the right audience. Let's say, again, to use my example from earlier, if you've got a whole bunch of gluten-free stock in your Queensland stores because you may have over-ordered or over-baked at your bakery and you need to shift that before the weekend, sending that email to your entire list around Australia is not a good idea, because you're going to get a whole bunch of unsubscribes from people that aren't gluten-free, aren't in Queensland, that are going to say, why are they sending me this? I'm not in this segment. I'm not in this group of people, not in that cohort. I'll just unsubscribe because, they keep sending me emails all the time that aren't relevant to me. So by having the data, I can now send this email to just gluten-free contacts in Queensland. And then if you look at the reporting for that email, it's going to perform really, really well, because it's going to people that are in that cohort who are going to engage with it, click on it. So again, a segmented send means you're reaching the right audience, and reaching the right audience means your Marcom strategy is working for you. Well, thank you very much for joining today's Vision 6 Power Session. My name's Andy from Constant Contact. I hope you've enjoyed today's session, and we'll see you at the next one. Have a great day.